It is a top, how about this? A top what? Top 15? I don't even know. All I know is there are two teams that are tied alone atop the SEC. Alabama and Tennessee, both sitting at 12-3, a full game ahead of South Carolina, 2 games ahead of fourth place Auburn, Kentucky, and Florida, who are all tied in fourth place right now. And so I bring it up because we got ourselves a showdown at Coleman Coliseum. And I'll say this, I've never been to Coleman. I know that Jay Williams had some not nice stuff to say earlier this year, said that it was like a tennis facility or it was like a tennis match. It was too quiet. I guarantee you, with Tennessee in town, with first place on the line in the SEC, I think Coleman's going to be rocking. I think Coleman is going to be the place to be. I want to see really quick if I can find some ticket prices because I have to imagine even for a venue like that, ooh, buddy, get-in price as of Thursday night is over $100, and this is Thursday. Wait till Friday, wait till Saturday. This is going to be the hottest ticket that Tuscaloosa has seen probably since something Nick Saban did. I don't know. Anyway, let's get to the game itself because what I think is interesting is the two best teams in this league, and I think it's a little bit different for both sides. Tennessee, we just talked about with Dalton Connect. Listen, I think what Tennessee has done this year is both impressive but not totally surprising. Thought they were the best team in the preseason in the SEC. You saw my tweet about Dalton Connect. Thought that he could take this program to another level, which he has. Tennessee, as I said, they are scoring points in ways that they never have. Now, what's interesting is Tennessee is like an A- offense with an A+ defense. By the way, don't be fooled by Tennessee. Like they give up a lot of points, but they give up a lot of points because they're scoring a lot of points. They're still number 2 in the country in field goal percentage defense. They are still a very solid defensive team. Alabama, on the other hand, has just basically punted on even trying to get stops defensively. I mean, Nate Oates has kind of publicly said, like, we are just not even close to where we need to be defensively. And you can see that in their recent games. Obviously, the one that stood out was Kentucky. They gave up 117 the other night, but they beat Ole Miss 103-88. They beat Florida 98-93 in overtime. They beat A&M 100-75 a few Saturdays ago, and they beat LSU 109-92. And so just listen to those results. Here are their last 6 games in terms of the points that Alabama has given up. 99, 92, 75, 93, 117, 88. So Alabama, they're moving the ball. Yeah, moving the ball. It sounds like football. They're getting the ball up and down the court. They play really fast. They score a lot of points. And I think this will be interesting. And I think the stylistic advantage, the stylistic matchups have to favor Tennessee. It is worth noting, by the way, these two teams played at Thompson Bowling Arena early in SEC play. Tennessee won 91-71. I expect this one to be more competitive, but I also do think Alabama could struggle because Alabama, listen, they lost to Kentucky, right? Game before that, they win in overtime against Florida at home. And then even on Tuesday night or Wednesday night against Ole Miss, they trailed by 3 at halftime. They got crazy hot in the second half and won. It's a credit to them, but this goes to what I've said about Alabama all year. And this is my take. This is my belief. Alabama fans are probably tired of hearing it. I think this is Nate Oates' best coaching job because I look at this team. I don't think they're as good at any spot as they were a year ago. And so when I look at the Tennessee game, I think there are spots that Alabama has an advantage, but Dalton Connect's going to be the best player on the floor. No disrespect to Mark Sears. Tennessee has more size. They have more athleticism. They play better defense. Can't say they shoot the 3 ball well or better because Alabama is one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country. In terms of the game itself, listen, I expect it to be very high scoring. I expect it to be fast paced. And I expect Alabama to give a great effort because they're going to be at home. I know that teams have not had a ton of success on the road this year. I'm going to have to wait to see a line. BetUS, as we record on Thursday night into Friday, March 1st, does not have a point spread out yet. But if I had to take a guess, I would say that Tennessee is going to win this game in what should be a very fun, very high-scoring affair. Give me the Vols. I'll say 92-86. I think the Vols get the win. I've said since April, I've said since this roster came together, that I believe Tennessee is the best team in the SEC. I obviously made my argument for Dalton Connect earlier in the show, and I expect Tennessee to get the win. Another interesting matchup, this one in the Big 12. Big game in Waco, Texas, baby. That is right. It's not just those two property husband and wife people that are doing big things in Waco. I hope you know what I'm talking about. There's an HGTV show based out of Waco. They're big Baylor fans. Anyway, that probably went over a lot of people's heads because I did not present it well. Anyway, Baylor against Kansas. Kansas number 7 in the country, Baylor number 15, another top 15 matchup. And this game's really interesting for a few reasons. Baylor is coming off a big Monday win in overtime against TCU to avoid the 3-game losing streak. Kansas, meanwhile, and I don't know if I gave this enough credit in real time, they lost at home to BYU on Tuesday. And I don't think I gave it enough credit because I've kind of been down on Kansas for most of the year. I don't think they're as good as most people do. And Kevin McCullough, their star player, did not play in that game. But it was still BYU going to Kansas and getting a win. And I think I undersold just how big that is, just how important it is, just how significant it is. So credit to BYU. Credit to them Cougars. You know, Torres loves those Cougars. But let's talk about Kansas for a second because Kansas is in a very interesting spot. So first off, both these teams are tied for third place in the Big 12. 9-6 in Big 12 play. Houston's ahead of them. Iowa State is ahead of them. What's interesting to me about this game, Kansas on the road. They are playing Baylor, a very good team. Kansas, if they lose this game, they will fall into a multi-way tie for fourth place in this league. And there are certain teams that they will not have tiebreakers against. BYU, for example, they only play once. BYU is 8-7 in league play. Kansas is 9-6. If they were to lose this game, they'd be tied with BYU. I bring it up because I was thinking about this, and I was talking to producer Matt before we went live. I don't know if there has ever been a season in which Kansas did not get the double bye into the quarterfinals at the Big 12 tournament. Now, how much does it really matter? I don't know. The tournament's in Kansas City. As somebody who made the drive from Kansas City to Lawrence earlier this year, I can tell you it's like a 25-minute drive. So there's going to be a million Kansas fans there. They're going to have the home court advantage, all of that. But at the same time, I don't think there has ever been a scenario where Kansas finished outside of the top 4 and had to play on Wednesday at the Big 12 tournament. So there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of interesting narratives coming in, specifically the health of Kevin McCullough. As I said, it's Kevin McCullough, not Hunter Dickinson, who is Kansas's best player. 19 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 35% from 3, and he's been out for a while. But what I think is especially interesting about this is that Bill Self has had some interesting things to say about Kevin McCullough and maybe some insinuation that Kevin McCullough isn't rushing back to get back on the court. I don't want to put words in Bill Self's mouth. I'm not trying to create controversy. But listen to what he said before the BYU game about Kevin McCullough. He said, quote, definitely will not play tomorrow. This is against BYU. He then stressed the importance of having McCullough back before the end of the regular season. Quote, if you start playing him after the Big 12 tournament, he won't be worth a crap in the NCAA tournament. Huh. That doesn't sound like a coach that's sitting there saying, this guy is itching to get back into the lineup. He's doing everything he can. And so it's a very interesting quote. And I don't think until we know what Kevin McCullough's status is that we can assume anything about this game. If he plays, I think it's a 50-50 toss-up. I would still probably lean Baylor. And then, of course, if he isn't playing, then I think Baylor might be 6 to 7 points better than Kansas. Won't be betting this game, won't be picking this game. Obviously, if you're watching this game or if you want to bet this game, make sure to monitor the health status of Kevin McCullough. But how about Bill Self? Got to basically say it his best player, who it's worth noting for people who don't know. He is an NBA draft prospect, probably a back end of the first round guy. And I think the insinuation is maybe he protecting himself for the NBA draft. That I don't know, but I find it very interesting. A couple other games, another top 20 matchup, Marquette at Creighton. Creighton, of course, a very nice win over Seton Hall on Wednesday. Weird 10 or so days for Creighton. They destroy UConn at home. Then they lose to St. John's at MSG, then come back with a dominant win over the Seton Hall Pirates on Wednesday. They're hosting Marquette. Marquette, I'll tell you this, man. Listen, I think that upper tier is Houston, UConn. I think you could throw Purdue certainly in there, maybe Tennessee. I don't think enough people are giving Marquette credit. You know that Marquette quietly, they've won all but one game. Let me do some quick math here. 2, 4, 6, 8. They've won 11 of 12 games. Their only loss in that stretch was that UConn debacle where they got embarrassed. But they beat a good Providence team by 22 on Wednesday night. They beat a decent Xavier team by 24. They're killing everybody except for UConn during this stretch. And I do wonder if maybe we're sleeping on them a little bit. Now, we'll find out a lot about them at Creighton. Then they have UConn at home next Wednesday. So you talk about two really big games, two games that can keep them in the Big East title race or completely eliminate them. I think that's where it gets interesting. Worth noting, by the way, if Marquette were to lose this game, UConn, which plays on Sunday, would clinch a share of the Big East title. UConn is 15-2 in league play. Marquette is 13-4. If Marquette loses, it means that UConn would be up 3 and they only have 3 games to go. So at worst, they would win a share of the Big East title. But I'll tell you, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be high scoring. I do give the advantage to Marquette. We don't have a point spread. I think Marquette wins. Last top 25 matchup of the weekend. South Carolina hosting Florida, noon Eastern. Listen, I told you about the Florida Gators about 3 weeks ago. This is a very good team. They are playing really good basketball. I got to give Todd Golden credit, man. He's a young cat, very confident. Told you what he was going to do when he got to Florida. And this team's playing really good basketball. They've won 5 of their last 6. Their only loss was in overtime to Alabama. And not only have they won 5 of their last 6, they have won 9 of their last 11 overall with some really good wins. At Kentucky, obviously, Rupp Arena. Auburn, they destroyed at home. They took care of Missouri on Wednesday night. That's not a great win, but they're taking care of business. They go to South Carolina. One thing I'll say about South Carolina, big win against Texas A&M on whatever it was Wednesday night. South Carolina, listen, veteran team, and they are going to make you play their style of play. We don't have a point spread. I think this one's going to be a little bit more low scoring. South Carolina dictates pace. My guess is the point spread or the over-under is probably going to be in like the high 150s, low 160s. Take the under. I don't want to give out a best bet, 12 hours before the lines come out, but I think that one's a little bit more low scoring. A couple other interesting games. Michigan State, Purdue, Saturday night Fox. Listen, Michigan State was supposed to be the toughest competition that Purdue had in the Big Ten, and it just has not turned out that way. Michigan State 17-11, 9-8 in the Big Ten. And there's a lot of people that I think are really frustrated with the state of Michigan State basketball. Lost at the buzzer to Ohio State last Sunday. They have not played since. But listen, they close at Purdue, Northwestern, at Indiana. I think there is a scenario where they don't make the NCAA tournament. And Tom Izzo, Calipari's kind of the guy that we get, like the older guy. What's wrong? He's slowing down. Like, has the game passed him by? I mean, Tom Izzo in Michigan State, they did make the Sweet 16 last year, but they have not been good in the regular season, really dating back to the 2020 season when it was canceled because of COVID. Got what was a play-in team in the 2021 bubble tournament. 2022, they lost in the second round. Last year, they made the Sweet 16, but even that was as like a 7 seed. This year, they're trending towards that 8, 9, 10 seed and just have not looked good. Don't think they're winning at Purdue. A couple other games to note. Interesting one in the WCC, Gonzaga at St. Mary's. Now, it's worth noting we're recording here on Thursday night. Why that is important, both Gonzaga and St. Mary's play on Thursday night. Gonzaga is at San Francisco. That is important because it is a quad one opportunity for Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is finally on the right side of the bubble, but they cannot lose on Thursday. But what's also interesting is that St. Mary's is at Pepperdine, and St. Mary's can clinch the regular season outright if they win on Thursday night. So by the time many of you listen to this, you'll know Gonzaga might be going to the WCC tournament for the first time in a decade as not the regular season champion. Now, the good thing for Gonzaga, they are on a heck of a roll since they lost to St. Mary's. They have now won 7 in a row, including that win at Rupp Arena. They're finally on the right side of the bubble. Key for them, they got to win at San Francisco on Thursday. You'll know the result by the time you listen to this. And I think if they were to sweep these final 2 games at San Francisco, at St. Mary's, I think that pretty much ensures them that they're going to get an at-large bid if they don't win the conference tournament. So we'll see what happens there. But obviously, that'll be a conversation on Monday's show if they don't sweep these 2 games. And if they lose both of them, then they almost certainly go to their conference tournament needing to win. By the way, Gonzaga wraps their regular season on Saturday. So these are the final 2 regular season games for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Really quickly, Sunday, one game of note, UConn hosting Seton Hall. That will be senior night for UConn. It'll be last home game for Tristan Newton, last home game potentially for our buddy Hassan Diarra. We'll be monitoring that one. They play Seton Hall. Remember Seton Hall? UConn's only got 3 losses all year. At Seton Hall was one of them, so you know UConn's going to be fired up. I think that's really it for the big Saturday games. Oregon at Arizona is a big one. Arizona doing what they need to do in the Pac-12. They have a 1-game lead over Washington State. If they win out, they will be the number 1 seed in the final Pac-12 tournament, and it's not an easy road. They have Oregon at home and then at UCLA, at USC. Senior night for Arizona like it's senior night for UConn. So a lot at stake in college hoops.